Hey, Bridging the Gap.
What's going on, BTG fam?
It's Cheryl and
Roger. Taking my hand away from me. Anyway, we're back with some more information on Noah's son Shem. Like I said, this one is a little bit trickier than Japheth and what's that other one? Ham. it's a little bit more dynamic than that. So we're breaking it up into a couple of different videos. We want to start with a bit of a recap about Shem, and then we want to jump into Abraham. We showed the lineage, and we're going to show it again. Matter of fact, let's just pull that up. Let's pull up the graphic that shows the lineage of Shem. Okay, as you guys can see, from Noah, he had 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, Ham. We are following the line of Shem. We've already talked about Japheth and Ham, and this line leads us all the way to the nation, the tribes of Israel. What I want you to take note of is Shem had a whole bunch of descendants prior to us getting to Abraham. If you see that line of red names, it ends at Terah. You drop straight down, then you have Abraham. All of those people are descendants of Shem. We're focusing on Shem because Noah said, God, the God of Shem. So we're trying to focus on, for those of us who are believers, understanding who God is and what his priorities are. There's no specific reason. Well, God chose Noah to survive the flood, so that was an obvious. He chose him because he thought he was the only one worthy of that at that time. But there's no explanation as to why God chose Abraham out of all of these other descendants of Shem. Noah said God is the God of Shem. He did not mention anybody else on this list as God being the God of those people. The next person we see in the Bible says God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel. So we want to follow that line and play that out. So the next person in line after Shem is Abraham, the God of Abraham. So we want to look at Abraham's descendants, at least the ones that are notable in the Bible. You'll see if you drop down again from Terah to Abraham. Most notably, we have Hagar and Sarah as who he had children with. But apparently Abraham, that we're just noticing this today, had another wife or a maid, somebody he had children with named Keturah. But we're going to focus on the ones that the Bible focuses on. Obviously, there's a mention of Keturah. It wouldn't be on this map. But we're going to focus on his firstborn child today, Ishmael. And we talked a little bit about, the different groups that lay claim to Abraham as their patriarch. We want to explain his firstborn child through Hagar and why they claim him as their patriarch, because he is. And we want to examine who these folks are. We gave you a real good breakdown of Japheth and a real good breakdown of Ham as African nations and European nations. The Bible doesn't tell us quite as much detail about Ishmael's descendants, so we're going to try to give you some information to do some background on that. So the belief is that the descendants of Ishmael are Arabian. I almost said Middle Eastern. That wouldn't be accurate. They are of Arab descent. The people of Ishmael are the people of Arabia. So that is the mindset and the belief system.
And Muslim, right?
And Muslim. Yeah. So one of the links we're going to share with you, we only have 2 links. One goes into a lot of detail, talking about those children on that last graphic that are under Ishmael and breaking down biblical connections to each child that is mentioned and where they were located at that time, which kind of links them to the area of Arabia. But in this, one of the links we're going to share with you, it says there's a popular theory among Muslims and some Christians that Arabian Muslims are direct descendants of Ishmael. It says, in fact, Muhammad was a major proponent of this, claiming to be a descendant of Ishmael, according to the Quran. Okay, so like I said, they lay claim to Abraham as their patriarch. So what we want to try to do is show you a little bit of why we think that's probably accurate. Okay? So on the same link, it says at the beginning, it's titled, Who Are the Descendants of Ishmael? I'm going to read you just a little bit here, then I'm going to show you some stuff on the map that suggested that this belief that they are the Arabian people is accurate. It says, Ishmael was a son of Abraham, born to Sarah's maidservant Hagar in an attempt to bring into the world the son God had promised. God promised Abraham a son. He went around and they figured out a way to try to make that happen without God. They went before God and had a child with the maidservant instead of his wife, right? Later, Isaac was born to Abraham and Sarah. And Hagar and Ishmael were driven away because of Ishmael's attitude towards Isaac. So as the firstborn son, Ishmael had a little bit of attitude towards his younger brother, but the younger brother was the child of promise, which is why we're focusing on these genealogies. God gave no reason outside of Noah why he chose Shem. There was no answer to that. Why he didn't choose any of those other people between Shem and Abraham, there's no explanation for that. It is what it is. God chose him. He did not choose Ishmael because that was not the child of promise. Isaac was the child of promise, and he was the chosen one. So it goes on to say, because of his attitude towards his brother. It said, but God still had plans for Ishmael. God promised Hagar that Ishmael, as a son of Abraham, will become a great nation. A great nation. The fulfillment is recorded in Genesis 25:12-18, which is where all those names come from. It says, Ishmael had 12 sons who became great rulers and eventually a nation of people. A nation. So he had
12 sons.
12 sons, just like
Isaac.
Jacob had 12 sons.
Isaac.
Jacob had 12.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Jacob had 12 sons and became a great nation of Israel, he promised that about Ishmael. Ishmael had 12 sons, and they became kings and created a great nation, one nation, right? And eventually, Ishmael had 12 sons who became great rulers, and eventually a nation of people. That came about in this way. Hagar, who was an Egyptian herself, found a wife from Egypt for her son, and Ishmael settled in the desert of Paran. And we're going to pause right there. So what they're telling you is, after they got separated from Sarah and Abraham, Hagar, which was the only parent that Ishmael still had, went and found one of her people to marry her son. And then he settled... And it says, and Ishmael settled in the desert of Paran. So we want to show you a previous map that we showed you of Abraham's journeys to Canaan through Haran. And so it got to give you an understanding of where these groups of people landed. So let's pull that one up. So as you guys can see this, the Bible says that even when Abraham's father was still alive, they traveled on their way to the land of Canaan. They left their homeland, the Ur of the Chaldees, the Chaldeans. Did you find something out? Did we talk about that last time? Okay. So they traveled this route up through Iraq to Haran, through Syria, down through Syria, into Israel. What I want you guys to notice is where Saudi Arabia is on this map. It is south of where Abraham initially was, and that is the area that is believed to be where Ishmael's descendants landed. This kingdom, this great nation of these 12 sons is believed to be Saudi Arabia. So that is, I want to say, this is the land that God gave to Ishmael, to this nation that his 12 sons would become. And I want to lay out that that is not where Abraham is from. That is not where they reside, where they travel to. This is Ishmael's territory, as most people believe. We want to kind of try to prove that. So that was their journey. And now we want to take a look at kind of where Ishmael's people settled. So we're going to go to the next video. Next graphic that will show you, let's see if I can point this out. Up at the top of this, you see where it says Great Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and just to the right of that it says Gaza, and then Canaan. That is the land that Abraham was given by God. Now, this article says that Ishmael's mother found him a wife, and then he settled near the desert of Paran. What I want you guys to look at now is just under where we started, where it says Great Sea. If you drop down to the bottom portion of that landmass, it says Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula we know is the Arabian Peninsula. Just above where it says Sinai Peninsula, it says Wilderness of Paran. Wilderness of Paran. So that is where Ishmael went when he was cast aside from his parents, or from his father anyway, Abraham, him and his mother. He got married. This is where he settled. So he traveled south to Arabia, to the Sinai Peninsula. But it goes on to say in this article, it says, then it says Genesis 21:21 says, I think the Paran was Genesis 21:21, and then it goes on to say Ishmael's descendants settled in the area of Havilah to Shur, near the border of Egypt as you go toward Ashur. Now hold on, I'm going to pause right here. You can see right here on this map, let's start at the top again where it says Great Sea. Bottom, it drops down, it says the wilderness of Shur. This says that they settled in the area from Havilah to Shur. That is the Shur that it's talking about. And then it says near the border of Egypt. You can see Egypt is just to the left. Egypt is just to the left. You can see the numbers on this map. It says 2 and 3. Egypt is right there. So where is Havilah? We've identified Paran, which is where Ishmael settled when he was separated from his dad. Then it says his descendants dwelled from Shur to Havilah. We don't have Havilah on this map, so we're going to pull up one more map to give you an idea of where Havilah is. And we're going to try to link this one to this video so you guys can actually see it yourself, because it's difficult to see. Reference point on this would be at the bottom where there's kind of a V on that landmass. There are 4 words. Something starts with an O, something starts with a K, something starts with what looks like an E, and just above that it says Havilah. Now you remember on this it says they settled in the area from Havilah to Shur, near the border of Egypt. That body of water just to the left of Havilah is the Red Sea. That is the border of Egypt and Saudi Arabia. So that would cover from the top of that area down to Havilah would be the borders of Egypt in Arabia. Now, all of that would suggest that this great nation that God said the sons of Ishmael, God said the sons of Ishmael would become, is the nation of Arabia, and it is a pretty powerful nation even to this day. What I want you guys to see on this map is right in the middle of this particular map, which you should be able to see even on this map, it says Shem, the land of Shem, which I find interesting. So you can go ahead and take that off. So we have this son of Abraham who was basically a son of disobedience, right? He was a child of disobedience. God said, "No, that ain't the one, and you need to send him on his way. I'm gonna take care of him because he's your child. He's going to have 12 children. They're going to be rulers in a great nation." And then it tells us where he settled. He himself and got married, settled down. And then it tells us the range of areas where his sons lived on the border of Egypt. All of that would suggest is that they are the Arabian people, and Muhammad would suggest in the Quran that he is the descendant of Ishmael, which is the son of Abraham, which is why they claim this connection to Abraham as their patriarch, just as Christians do, just as the Jewish people do. But we're on this journey of who God is and what his priorities are. Again, no real explanation. There's no real explanation why he chose Shem, why he didn't choose anybody else till Abraham. We got some explanation as to Ishmael because he did things out of order. He didn't sleep with his wife. He slept with somebody he wasn't married to create this child. But here's something I want to point out to you. As we're going through this and understanding there's really no rhyme or reason. God does what God does for God's reasons. We won't understand. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. This is not about elevating any one people or diminishing any one people. We talked about this before. This is simply about understanding who God is and what his priorities are. Because all of these young men, they're brothers. They are brothers. Ham, Shem, Japheth, right? The people in this region, we've proven basically that the African nations is where Ham settled at, right? We've proven that Japheth are the European nations. What we've seen and we haven't been able to definitively prove as of yet is basically all of that map that we showed you going eastwards where Abraham traveled all the way to India and China was the land given to Shem, and southward, including Arabia, which is why that said Shem on the map. These are brothers with locations that God gave them to reside, right? But because they're brothers, they're going to have close connections. Abraham was a child of Shem, not a child of Ham. He created a child with an African woman who's a child of Ham. And I want to make sure we understand this, and I want to read it. It says, this nation of Ishmaels that was going to come about, says, that came about in this way. Hagar, who was an Egyptian herself, that's Shem and Ham coming together to create Ishmael, says she found a wife from Egypt, from Egypt for her son. And Ishmael settled in the desert of Paran. Abraham procreated with an Egyptian. Black people making black people. Ishmael, who by his father's seed is a Shemite, married an Egyptian and created these 12 nations that we know as Saudi Arabia. And this is my point. These are brothers. They're all blood linked. We're all connected. We're all related. This is not about lifting up anybody or stepping on anybody else or diminishing anybody else. There are going to be, even when it comes to, and we said this before, Kemet, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all of that. It all stems from the same place with the same people who are closely connected and are literally blood brothers. So we can stop with all the divisions and just track what God said would happen and who his priority, what his focus is, whatever reason. I don't know. I have no idea. You got any idea why God chose these people?
No.
Me either. So nobody knows the answer to that. The question is the Bible accurate? And are we focused on his priorities? And are we going to continue in disobedience? Throughout this journey, we got to see that where black people are today, especially the descendants of Jacob, Where we are today is a result, flat out result of disobedience, but we see it play out through all throughout. He told Abraham to go, leave everybody. He didn't go. He didn't leave everybody. He took Lot. Had all kinds of problems. Didn't get shown the promised land until he got rid of Lot. Now here God has spoken to you directly and promised you a child. Just like the rest of us, we're impatient. We live in a microwave society. We want what we want when we want it. So he went around and did what he needed to do to try to create what God had promised. That didn't work out either. He ended up having to send away his first child who he loved. He didn't want to send him away, but God said, you hard-headed. Cut him loose. I'm going to take care of him, but you hard-headed. That's not what I told you I was going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Nobody knows why he's doing what he's doing, but we have to understand. We have to focus on his priorities. Just like Abraham. We all claim him as our patriarch, but do we understand the mistakes he made and the lessons we can learn? Whatever God has told you to do, if you're not doing that, partial obedience is disobedience to him. He went to Canaan, but he took Lot. Sorry, bro, can't give you the land with Lot. I told you to leave everybody. I made you a promise you're going to have a child at 90 years old, 100 years old, whatever the age was. Okay, well, it's been almost a year, and man, I ain't got no baby, so we're going to go this other route. No, that's not going to work out for you, which is why he had to send his firstborn child away. We want to get to where we see his priority and we're doing and honoring his priorities without speculating on why, without trying to appear that some group of people or some one person is better than somebody, because that's not true. Ultimately, what you're going to see on this journey is, to whom much is given, much is required. There's a responsibility. There's a burden of being that chosen of God. And you're going to see it play out over and over and over again as we go on this journey. This ain't about elevating nobody, because I promise you the Israelites did not do what they needed to do as the chosen people, which is why the suffering is taking place today. It's about disobedience. So, again, this is the sons of Shem that we're talking about, the descendants of Shem. And the next person that was chosen was Abraham. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So now we're going to look at the other child that is talked about often in the Bible, which is Isaac. And we're going to have that discussion leading to Jacob, leading to Israel, ultimately connecting to this whole journey that we've been on that led us to Ghana and why. So, did I miss anything, babe?
I don't think so.
Yeah, things get a little interesting when you get to Abraham. There's so many different moving parts, and again, they're all brothers. They're all connected in one way or another. Even Ham and Shem, they're crisscrossed all over the place. Shoot, Joseph and them, they spent 400 years in Egypt. You can't untangle all of that, and it started way back with the father procreating with a Hamite. I mean, this is just black folks being black folks, doing what we do. We get together, we procreate. God told Adam, right? Look, populate the earth, right?
Baby kids.
Just procreate. This is what we do. None of it. Jesus has African bloodlines in his bloodline. These are brothers. Understand that. They are brothers. This is not to elevate or diminish anyone at all, because it's mixed all throughout. And if you look around today, it's most definitely mixed. So we just want to shed light on what God said his priority was and make sure we're focused on that. But we know for sure is the people in Israel right now, that wasn't God's priority. He spoke to it. Said Japheth will dwell in the house of the tents of Shem. That is Shem's land. And we just showed you a good picture of it. Whatever that land is, it's either Shem or Ham where Canaan's at. It ain't Japheth's land. That we know for absolute sure. So, but there's a reason for that too. We're going to talk about that. They have their time. All of these boys had their time. And this is their time.
Their who?
Huh?
This is their time. Who's there?
Japheth. Europeans. This is their time. The Africans had their time. We started out with the time of the Amorites. When it was
The
told,
Hamites had their time. You say African.
Hamites, excuse me. Hamites, which are the African nations, had their time when he was talking to Abraham. And he says, this is what's going to happen. Your children are going to go into slavery for 400 years. And he says, you're going to die off and rest with your fathers. This is going to take some time. I have to let the Amorites, the time of the iniquity of the Amorites complete. I have to let them complete their sin, their iniquity. So the first period of time was given to Ham. The second period of time was all about Shem entering into this promised land, and particularly Jacob. And the goal was for them to be the model for the rest of the world. That didn't work out so good because of disobedience. And God told them what was going to happen. That's what Deuteronomy 28 is about. He told them what would happen if you go in here and you don't obey. You got 15 chapters, 15 verses in Deuteronomy 28 of beautiful blessings with obedience. From verse 16 to 68 is what will happen if you don't. There's a burden that comes. We're not elevating anybody. There's a responsibility to being in this line of chosen. And if you don't meet that responsibility, there are consequences for disobedience. Doesn't change the fact that we still got to know what God's priorities are and line up with that. And the reason we're doing this for most of our adult lives, most of our Christian lives, we've been focused on the wrong people in the wrong place because they don't belong there. And that is discouraging and infuriating. I hate to be lied to. And we bought that hook, line, and sinker. Not doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. We're going to focus on who God is, what his priorities are. And God is an inclusive God. He's an all-inclusive God. Folks, when Israel left Egypt from slavery, the Bible told you then, there was a mixed multitude that left with them. God didn't say, y'all Egyptians didn't know. Anybody who saw who the Israelites were and who their God was and wanted to come, he was all-inclusive. And again, these are brothers. They're mixed together. They're going to be mixed together no matter what. Mm-hmm. Traditions and customs and all, there's going to be lines that are crossed. And as long as it's true, I don't care where it came from. Don't matter if it's Muslim or Kemetic or Christian or Judaism or this Jewish nation. I mean, I want nothing to do with that. But all of these things they're intertwined. There's no way you can completely separate them from their brothers, their family. Period. End of story. So I hope we've given you a good idea. We'll put some links in the description of the video so you guys can do a little bit more research as to who these sons of Ishmael are. They're listed in the Bible. They're listed on the graphic. And one of the links is going to break them down individually and Bible references to them, which are all in Arabia. So with that, I think that's about it for this video. For those of you who are going to be attending the class, we will probably get an email out to you this week. All right. I think that's it.
All righty.
You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.